Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Pete Coles, MV Pete, and Rich Sutter here. We are absolutely pumped, super pumped to be back with you today. The basketball world is in full swing, folks, full swing. And it just gives you something to do in the winter around here. Gotten a little cold, got a little bit of snowy now. Now you can snuggle in by the TV and watch some unbelievable basketball that's been going on in both leagues that we cover. In the zone here, we're kind of a binary equation. We like to do about 30 minutes on the NCAA, about 30 minutes on the NBA. We have a couple of segments that we love here in the show. One is Pete's Corner. We're about ready to kick off into that. But also our Super 25, which is our NCAA college basketball poll, and also our Power 15, which is our NBA Super Poll. And we do a good job with both of them, I think. And this week was a very, very difficult test, especially on the Super 25 side with all of the number ones going down and everybody kind of in flux. But I think we did a good job with it. I think those algorithm people are having a lot of trouble right now, because they're cognitively dissonant right now. In some of those polls, they're not believing what they're seeing, and they're allowing their algorithms to take them in a different direction. But Pete's Corner is a segment of the show where we formulate, postulate, and coagulate some questions. Pete asks me, and I do my best to dialogue with Pete and give him a good answer and see if we can bring some relevance to the question, to the show, which really, really does happen a lot. I don't know the questions beforehand. We like it that way. But what does happen is, very often there's other ties in that Pete asked me the question. There's other ties in the show, and that excites me when we get to that point. So we'll see what you got this week, Pete. Numero uno, shoot it.
All right, I'm watching around. I'm a casual fan. You're a hardcore, so I'm looking at upsets. Creighton spanks Kansas. Where'd that come from? I mean, I know Creighton's good, but where'd that come from?
Yeah. Great question, though. And
I'm looking at it going, that might be a legitimate court stormer. I saw them storm the court. I saw them blow pyro off the backboards at the end of the game. I'm like, that's legitimate. That's a high value win right there.
So that's a great question. Let me unwrap it for you a little bit. First, in the micro, where you have Doug McDermott, the coach of Creighton. I fully have great respect for Coach McDermott, one of the really, really great coaches in our game today. Absolutely fabulous. So anytime you're going to go into Nebraska, go into one of his arenas, which that's a pumped arena, when you go in there and you're a number one team, you better watch out. And I'll tell you why you better watch out, because it happened to the UConn Huskies the year before. So Doug McDermott has taken out two number one teams in 2 years consecutively, and it's because they have a great home court arena, because he's a really, really good basketball coach, and it's also that piece of it where you become the target when you're number one. That gym, I watched the game, that gym was absolutely off the hook. So now you can extrapolate out, you can see the Missouri Tigers take out Kansas. Another game sitting there, you say, wow, how did they lose that one? That place in Missouri's gym was amped up to the 10th. You couldn't get any louder in there. And Kansas didn't play well, and Missouri played unbelievably great. And that's what can happen when you're in one of those arenas. And I've been in some of those arenas, both D3 and D1. D3, the arenas are much smaller. But if you're in there in an NCAA game, like I was at Babson or I was at Nazareth, where they're right on top of you, you can't hear yourself. You can't hear anything that your players are saying to you. They can't hear much of what you're saying to them. The good piece is the referees can't hear you either. But you're really in a zone where it's so loud in there that you can't, function unless you have hand signals, unless you have some other way of communication with your team. And that's what we prepared for as we would go into those games. But it's absolutely deafening sometimes in those gyms, and it's unbelievable. And what it does is it spurs the home team to play better, and it makes it really, really difficult for the visiting team because nobody's cheering for them. It's a human element thing too, Pete. Nobody's cheering for them. Yeah. Everybody, all 19,000 people are cheering for them. And I'll just throw in this little tidbit. There are some people that run around these arenas with whistles from time to time, and every once in a while, they think that the crowd's cheering for them as well. And and you'll see body language and gesticulation that changes when the home crowd needs a call. The ref comes out of there and he's pumped up, ready to give it to him. When he has to call something and he knows he's going to get booed by the home crowd, he comes out of there like a meek mouse coming out of his hole to look for a piece of cheese. So there's a big difference there, and you see that sometimes as you see some of these runs start happening and the crowds start to inflate and the crowds start to get crazy, everybody gets caught up in it. Everybody gets caught up in it. The coaches do. You saw Bruce Pearl and his team have trouble with it at Duke Carmen Indoor Stadium. It happens. And it's good for these coaches, believe it or not, that they're getting into these environments now, because that will teach your team how to measure their emotional quotient. How good are they under the most duress? And that's what you want to know. And so that's one of the reasons these games are good. It's also one of the whole things of, that's why, now in the macro, when we're looking at this thing on a bigger picture, TV is enforcing some of these games. We talked about that last week. So now you have these coaches going head to head in these places which they would normally never step foot into in a million years. But now you got to go to Creighton. Now Kansas has to go to Missouri, places they wouldn't go unless they were league games, because their leagues are very strenuous. I give them credit. They play in these leagues that are absolutely just up and down the boulevard, very, very strenuous. I get that. But then in these non-conference games, it's really hard to hold your team together when everybody's against you. It's really difficult, and it's only, you saw Bill Self's team come undone. He's a great coach. He might be one of the best in the entire business. You saw his team come undone under that duress, and it's not easy. And it's a learning lesson as well. But another great question, Pete.
All right, putting politics aside, the WNBA got a huge recognition award. How big to women's sports right now is Caitlin Clark?
So she is just an icon in the game. I don't know if there's any other way to describe it. And to be honest with you, I think it's a little bit odd, because there have been other great players in the WNBA, that have been, a lot of the focus on this young lady is her gender also, but also her racial makeup. And I find that a little off-putting, to be honest with you. There's been other great players that have, been in uniform in the WNBA that were white players. Taurasi, Sue Bird. They've had some great ones. And then they've had some players in there
Rebecca Lobo
of a diverse background that have been great players as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they want to minimize this argument down to that. This is a great day for them. This is a good day for them. Business is pumping. This is a good thing. I'm unsure why people are having such a hard time getting on to the bandwagon. And some of it, if you come right down to it, some of it's just hatred. Really,
that's what I
the drawback on her, because there's really nothing that you would say about that young woman that's, a drawback right now that I could say, wow, I wish he hadn't done this, or I wish he hadn't done that, and so, no, I think she's been a perfect ambassador for the game. I think that she's doing great, great things monetarily for the game, and I think that they should all be understand that they're benefiting from that, and then also to certainly not tackle her out on the court, certainly not treat her to, Draymond Green tactics, that I've seen her subject to. I think that that's been a little off-putting as well. Give consideration to the fact that one of these people that are in that league that nobody even knows their name could put out the Golden Goose with an injury. Just think about that. And not just Caitlin Clark's career riding on this. There's a bunch of careers riding on this right now. I think the WNBA would be wise to sit down in the offseason and address some of the things that have gone on, look at them carefully, and also start to look at their coaching decisions carefully. They had to fire Caitlin Clark's coach in the middle of the year, and a whole lot of controversy, a whole lot of stuff swirling around that. These women deserve the best coaches as well. They deserve the best environments as well. They deserve the best that America has to offer, in my opinion. Now, that being said, there's competition. Everybody's going to go at her. Everybody wants to defeat her. I get it. What's happening isn't competition, though. That's not competition, because out on the floor, she has very few peers. It seems that her peers come from off the floor more than they come on the floor. The criticisms come from off the floor, in the studio, in ESPN studios, and I think that that's off-putting as well.
I heard the only Time Athlete of the Year is obviously what we're talking about. And the only other single individual female athlete that's got it ever was Simone Biles. But I heard somebody bring this up, and it's a great point about what's going on with Caitlin Clark. She is a jump shooter in a layup league. You can't say it any better than that, really. It's a layup league, the WNBA. And she's a jump shooter, and when she crosses the line, she can hit from just about anywhere.
I'm in full agreement with you, and I think that assessment of the WNBA could be. We might get Forney back in here and see what That I think that assessment's pretty strong. I think that's a good assessment. What I'm saying to the people here is, you have a phenom, and I've been around all sorts of phenoms in my life on the men's side, and never ever one time did I see them subject to the treatment that Caitlin Clark has gotten. Larry Bird didn't get it. Magic Johnson didn't get it. Michael Jordan didn't get it. Isaiah Thomas didn't get it. They had all sorts of different levels of vitriol and competitiveness in the league, but they didn't get the same stuff that this young lady's getting. And it's sheer, unadulterated hatred. I don't like it. Okay, Pete, let's shoot for three.
All right. We're coming into the time where we do holiday tournaments and things like that. As a coach, you're trying to keep your kids, let them go and have their fun for Christmas. How do you bring them back in right after Christmas and get them refocused back into basketball?
It's a great question. One of the things that I try and do is, what will happen is our league is binary. So in the first half of the year, we don't play any league games. Our league games start after January and in earnest, and then you'll play only predominantly league games right after that. What I like to do is have an opponent or two right after January before we go into league. So our league starts this year January 8th. I'd like to get 2 games before then. I got 1. But you're always going to want to have 1 in there before you go in. Second piece of it is, how quickly do you bring them back? Because for us, it's a measurement up against the end line of Martin Luther King Day. And what I alluded to last week on the show a little bit of is, our players come in, and a lot of players come in. You come in during intersession. All of the students are home. Campus is a very lonely place. There's nothing to do except play basketball and go to your games. It's not an easy time. And so what I try and do is minimize and mitigate that amount of time for my team. I don't want them to be in that intersession for over 20, 25 days if I can help it. Because Martin Luther King Day often is, later in January, and now you're really bumping up against it. And it also makes it difficult because that way our players don't really play in front of crowds. When we start our league season, the first 4 or 5 games, there'll be no students there, and it makes a difference. So we try and get ready everything now, which is coming up into January. We have one more league game. We have one more non-league game. Then we have, before the break, one non-league game after the break, but then that's it. We'll go 12 straight, and that's it, MASCAC, all the way through to the end. But another great question, Pete. I really like that segment. Let's go into our Power 15 right now in the NBA. Super, super stuff going on there.
So watch this. I found some cool thing. Watch this effect now. We got some cool stuff going on with how we do the graphics now.
Love it.
Apparently, they've come out with an update and new features that I found out. Just hunting around.
I like it. And we're jumping off right here. And again, we're coming to the end of the semester because my voice is fading aptly. All right? But I promise you, I'm going to take good care of it after the break and try and see if we can not yell as much during the game. We'll see what happens with that. Cleveland Cavaliers, 21-4, Pete. Good story of the NBA. Really, really doing good stuff. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on the Celtics right now because, as I alluded to, they are in Eastern Conference hyperspace right now. They're running away from everybody else. This was a surprise. The OKC Thunder, 19-5, no surprise, playing great basketball. Little bit of a surprise that they have been able to fight off the loss of Holmgren, which was a big, big loss for them. Hopefully they'll get him back within reasonable time, but I don't know. But the big surprise here, moving up into the number 4 spot and number 5 spot, are the Memphis Grizzlies and the Houston Rockets. John Morant is back. The Grizzlies are playing better. We told you this would happen. We told you the Rockets would be elevated this year. We told you the Rockets were ready for liftoff. They're in our 4 and our 5 spot and doing really, really good things. 17-8, 16-8, and they're cooking with gasoline out there in the West. Dallas Mavericks move into the 6th spot, 16-9. Kyrie Irving and Luka are carrying that team around. They're waiting for Klay Thompson to come back, but I think you're going to be waiting on Godot there. Orlando Magic, 17-10, playing good basketball, but they have it's 2 injuries down there that have been what they call oblique injuries, meaning the midsection, but off to the side of the midsection, more off the rib cage. Franz Wagner now, again, oblique injury, out for a good amount of time. We'll see how long they can handle that because now they got 2 great stars out. We'll see. The Knicks, tough loss last night to the Hawks. Trae Young is putting up assists at crazy, crazy number, and it's really elevating and lighting that team up. But the Knicks, 15-10, playing pretty good basketball. Karl Anthony Towns has really stepped his game up. Golden State Warriors at 14-9. About 2-3 Power 15s ago, the Golden State Warriors were in like the 2 or 3 spot, and they've fallen. They've taken a little bit of a lead balloon here, and they're going down. 14-9, not bad, but I think they had a little bit more hopes for this team. Los Angeles Clippers, 14-11. They're hanging in there. I didn't think they would be this good this year. Harden is there, but Kawhi Leonard hasn't played yet, and they're holding on. They traded Paul George. I thought that was a good thing for them because Paul George hasn't exactly lit it up in Philadelphia either. It hasn't exactly been Philadelphia freedom. Miami Heat, 12-10. Tyler Herro, one of the great stories of this year, lighting it up from all over the place. The Heat are talking about trading Jimmy Butler. Maybe one of the reasons they're talking about trading Jimmy Butler is because of the emergence of Tyler Herro right now. Unbelievable play they're getting from him. In the 12 spot, Pete, what's wrong with the Denver Nuggets? The Denver Nuggets were playing the Washington Wizards, who were on either a 15 or 16 game losing streak. And they went in, and I believe they went into Denver and beat them.
Wow.
12-10 for Denver. I don't know. We got J.J. Redick on our hot seat as the coach to go first, but keep an eye on Michael Malone there. He's a couple of years removed from a championship, but I think they thought they'd be better than that. Milwaukee Bucks doing okay. They're up and down. They're up and down. They had a really good run where they won 9 in a row. They got into that cup situation. They're doing pretty good, but I don't know. I don't know about that team. Middleton, he worries me. He's a China doll. He's supposed to be coming back soon. Los Angeles Lakers, 13-11. We alluded to the lack of defense from LeBron James, and again, lack of defense generally from the whole team. Because what happens in the NBA also is this is part of, I think, why this is a little piece of why people don't like it. But they do all of these really, really complex defensive schemes. Like they're football coaches. We're stunting, we're blitzing, we're this, we're that, we're drop coverage, we're that. The first time you make your defensive players think too much, they lose their aggressiveness. And so that's what happens in the NBA more than anything. Second piece of the NBA, they double down on everybody. I mean, they're double teaming everybody as if they're freaking Michael Jordan. Stop with the double teams. Play some defense straight up. Get your guys to cover people. Don't let them run by you with the strong hand. I mean, there's so many things they could do that would just be instantly better. And if I was the Denver Nuggets or the Dallas Mavericks, and I had guys like Luka, who couldn't guard a bank with a gun and a badge, honestly, you might think about playing some zone. You're allowed to play zone now. I don't know why they don't. Just put him in a zone and let him stand there because that's what he does when his man's playing, and it's just really deleterious to their whole approach. But the Hawks are one of the hotter teams and one of the good stories here. 14-12, big win over the Knicks last night in Madison Square Garden in the cup, the big cup that they have. All right. The West was 11-4 in our previous Power 15. We talked about how dominant it was. We thought it would calibrate. We didn't think it would calibrate this quickly. Now it's 8-7. Now it's 8-7. The West is 8, and they're 7.
You thought it'd be after Christmas before that happened.
It went quick. It went quick. And it can happen in a cohort. It's kind of like a batting average, It can happen quick while you don't have a lot of at-bats. But once you get up into that 50, 60, 70 game range, not quite as easy to move it. But it's a little bit like that. Chris Paul, rhyming and diming. Chris Paul passes Jason Kidd for number 2 on the assist list, 12,092. Who's number 1, Pete? John Stockton. That number he eclipsed with a basket to none other than the great Victor Wembanyama. He has 610 assist games. Only the second player in NBA history to do that, John Stockton, has 863 10-plus assist games. There have been, this was interesting, I thought, kind of cool. There have been 173 recipients of Chris Paul's assists in the NBA. John Stockton, so we'll give you the first number. He ended up with 12,099 that night. And since then has probably played another game, maybe, and added some more in there. But you're looking at, 12,100. Stockton has 15,806. That's a record I don't know.
Keep plugging away.
Even with the stats padding and all the other stuff that goes on there, I really, really don't know. In our repeated segment here, Pete, of the conga line to the nurse's office, major spike, a 40% increase in missed games. 2023-2024, 1,299 GMIs, which I call game missed to injury. This year, 2024-2025, 1,830 GMI, a 40% increase.
They can't be getting that soft, can they?
And getting paid more than ever.
Ugh.
I don't know if it's soft or it's just now, why should I?
Yeah, I guess.
There's no penalty. Now, the NBA starts wrapping them with a per-game penalty because you weren't there. A lack of participation, fine. I think they might play some more games. But I think the NBA's got to get involved in this, Pete. People are paying in two different venues, right? You got two different venues. You go to the arena, and you pay your ticket, expensive. You want to buy your son a hot dog, a soda, a T-shirt, all of those things. Now you're into hundreds of dollars, right? Or your TV package, where now they're asking you for streaming options and to go buy this and buy that, rather than you got ESPN and you get to see all of the games. No, now we're going to go out and we're going to sell them to you little by little by little. Okay, no problem with that. But you're selling a product. You're selling a product. And you have to worry about your product. And they don't seem to have any worry about their product right now. Awful. Adam Silver. We had last week a trade and cut list, with NBA players that we said get rid of them.
Yep.
They just have very, very limited value, in my opinion, per the price tag. Hi-Yo Silver, Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, get him out. Get him out. If you can't solve this problem, get him out. These kids go to the arenas to watch these superstars play. And you got guys announcing, I don't go back to back. Get him out. Get him out. Get all these people out, because you're killing the league. You're absolutely destroying the NBA. Okay, I got a dirty dozen for you, Pete. And I gave you a dirty dozen of the college guys, but I'm going to go. Let's put that away for just a second.
All right.
I'm going to stay with my NBA guys.
You didn't give me the dirty dozen for the NBA.
I got tired of typing, and I couldn't do it to you, Pete. I couldn't do it to you. But I'm going to give it to you. Here, Pete's ready with our graphic on the dirty dozen in the college, but we're going to jump into that when we do. Nikola Jokic right now, triple-double averaging. Vegas thinks he's going to win the MVP. I'd certainly like to see him tune it up on the defensive end a little bit. Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 2 from the Bucks, playing unbelievably good basketball right now. He's carrying the Bucks around because him and Dame Lillard are the only two options they have. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, from the Thunder. He's been carrying his team with Holmgren out, doing a really good job. And he's a great young story because he's one of those young guns that have been in the NBA now that are pushing this older crowd either into oblivion or pushing them to do better. I think right now they're pushing them into oblivion. Jason Tatum, number 4, having a great year, great player, Duke recruit. Just an overall great representative and ambassador for the Celtics. Donovan Mitchell, maybe even a little higher on this guy, Pete. 5, Donovan Mitchell, carrying the Cavaliers around like a suitcase with luggage. Karl Anthony Towns from the Knicks. I don't like his defense, but he dropped 40 a couple of times. He shoots the ball deep. He opens space, and the Knicks are playing better now than they were. I don't know about if you would compare the Knicks of the previous year and their good chemistry and that good feel for the way they're playing right now, which they seem to have a little bit more talent, but I think that trade kind of upset their feel a little bit. Anthony Edwards in the 7th spot from the Timberwolves, unbelievable superstar. They're underachieving this year, though. Steph Curry from the Warriors, you got to have him on this list, the great shooter. He's the greatest shooter in the game right now, maybe one of the greats of all time. Kevin Durant with the Suns, he's been injured. It shows. The Suns have been terrible since he's been out. And when he gets back, you'll see them improve. He's just an unbelievable 6'11" guard. Kevin Durant, unbelievable. LeBron James, we took him out. And we put in Franz Wagner. After watching his defense last week, we had LeBron James on this list. We took him out. We'll preview it and maybe put him back in at another time. But we went with Franz Wagner instead. Much, much happier to do that. And we go with Ja Morant as well as one of our picks this week in the Dirty Dozen. Carrying the Grizzlies. He's back from the suspension. And I think it's really paid dividends for him because he seems to have grown a little bit. And we're going to close out with Alperen Sengun from the Rockets. He's one of the big reasons that they're doing really good. All right, they had a list here of NBA biggest disappointments so far this year in the NBA. Basically, you could encapsulate the whole season. Call it a disappointment. Call your cup a disappointment. Call everything in your league the missed games. Everything about it a major disappointment. The TV ratings are proof positive of that, and you need to change. You need to move in a different direction, and you don't seem to have the right person to move you that way. They seem to be footless. They seem to be directionless. They don't seem to have a good idea. All right, injuries, okay? They call it injuries. I'm referring to it also as China doll syndrome. China doll syndrome. A lot of dudes just taking days off. Eastern Conference has been a big disappointment. I would say the whole NBA play in general has been a big disappointment. The Lakers have been a big disappointment. So has J.J. Redick. So has LeBron James. Miami Heat, rumors that the Butler did it. They're going to trade J.J. Butler. They're going to get him out. I don't know. They love their culture there, and I respect that so much. We'll see. The Kings, they've been a big disappointment as well. The Kings have been a disappointment as well. The Nuggets, they're going to start calling them the Denver Nuggets because there's no D in Denver right now. Timberwolves, they got dumped on. They took Julius Randle as a dump. We call him Julius Randle because he doesn't play D either. Pacers, the open looks have turned to open bricks. They're not making shots. They're having problems, and they better get it started. The Pelicans, bunch of Duke no-shows down there. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram haven't played. They're really struggling as a franchise. They need those two guys back. 76ers, they're back to the future. Here's a couple I got for you, Pete. These are a few that I threw in. This was Bleacher Report or somebody else's. Here's a few I throw in. The level of play, terrible. The level of play is terrible. Number 2, the high price of mediocrity. $50 million for guys that aren't even in the top 25 players in the game. The high price of mediocrity. No problem with the high price of superstardom. But right now, we're in the high price of mediocrity. No defense rule they have implemented. Don't go near anybody. It's like we have 6 foot of spacing still from COVID. Okay? I would appreciate it if they get a little bit closer. Leadership. There's no leadership. This league is completely adrift right now. Hi-yo, Silver. Get him out. I didn't like the other guy either. David Stern. Couldn't stand him either. Yeah. Neither one of them ever dribbled the basketball. Okay, coaching. Whew. Coaching is terrible. Steve Kerr crying on TV last night about a call that the Golden State Warriors didn't get, and standing there and he's weeping on stage, and I was like, hey, punk, you know what you did to Jason Tatum? Get off the stage and get out of here. You're bugging me. Shot selection. Everybody thinks they're a three-baller now. Everybody's stepping up, and what we have is a CYO, three-point shooting contest. And again, the reliance of math. So many of these coaches have all these young nerds around them spitting out all these different computer-generated algorithms and AI different scenarios and all these great plays which don't lead to anybody getting open. I really find it like so mathematically driven right now. We've coined it the weapons of mathematical destruction. Okay, Pete, I am ready to go into the Super 25. NCAA. This was hard, folks. I got to be honest with you. This was a difficult one. The top wasn't that bad, but when I looked at what the other people had in theirs, I was like, my God, what are they thinking? Because I do reference them and I do look. Torvik has Houston and Duke 1 and 2. Houston has 3 losses. Duke has 2 losses. 2 credible losses, but you still lost. Now, here we go with mine. Again, everybody kind of coalesced around this one because there was nowhere else to go. Tennessee, number 1. They're 9-0. Rick Barnes. Now, again, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Pete. Coach Barnes' schedule, a lot of these other schedules in the top 25, not exactly gluten-free. Okay? Not exactly gluten-free. They're devouring cannolis. They're devouring cupcakes. They're devouring Christmas cookies. Florida 9-0. This is where I think the algorithm makes me go home. A lot of stuff swirling around this guy's program right now about some Title IX violations, about some stuff going on with staff members and all different people outside of everything that doesn't happen to do with an X and an O. Okay, but they've been made 9-0 and been made to stay on track and remain disciplined. They have Walter Clayton, who's one of the best players in the country right now. Right now, in my opinion, he'd be 1, 2, or 3 for the Wooden Player of the Year award right now. He's leading this team, and it's a story that everybody's missing because I think people want to stay away from it because of all of the off-court stuff that's going on around it. And I think that's deleterious to their team because they've earned it. They're 9-0. I'm putting them number 2. The highest I saw anybody else have the Florida Gators was like 10th, 9th or 10th. They're undefeated right now, and everybody else is falling like stones. Iowa State, 7-1. Good team, moved them up. I really like this team. Their guard play is fabulous. Keshawn Gilbert and Tameen Lipsey might be one of the best backcourts in the country. Auburn at 8-1. Them and Iowa State right there. And any one of these teams could be number 1 right now. Auburn's having a great year. The only reason I picked Iowa State over them is because Iowa State hasn't had their plane turned around. Kentucky in the 5 spot. We said this, Pete, I don't know how many times on this show. Pope is dope. Okay, big win over Colgate last night. Colgate came back, made the game a little bit closer, but it was a big win. Big win for Kentucky to get out there. 9-1 at the break. This guy can coach, and the difference right now, you can almost see it on the Kentucky fans' faces. They know. They had a guy that wasn't an X and O technician. They had a guy who was a salesman. They had a guy who was a recruiter. They had a guy who was a bag man prior. Okay, now they got this guy who's one of their own, a good basketball technician. Really, really smart about his recruiting choices, and this team is loaded for bear. The SEC right now has taken a huge chunk of the Super 25, and they ate it up. Got to give them their respect, Pete, where it is. They got 4 teams in our top 25.
Sure.
Marquette, number 6, 9-1. Cam Jones, potential player of the year candidate, having a great year. I'm high on this team. I don't know why anybody else is. They suffered a really tough loss to UCLA the other day. Really tough loss. UCLA's a good team. You know, and Oregon, that was their first loss, 9-1. I like this team a lot. We picked them last week to win the Big Ten. I'm going to stand on that. UCLA, Mick Cronin, 8-1. Was down for a couple of years after that national championship run, but doing really, really good stuff right now. They're 8-1. Bringing some West Coast validity back with Gonzaga getting chipped up as much as they have. Georgia, 8-1. Asa Newell, look at this young man as one of the best freshmen in the country, folks. He's having a monster year. Okay, St. Mary's, we missed them last week. Excuse me. They were in the 16th spot, and I skipped right over them. So St. Mary's, Coach Bennett, great stuff. They're doing really, really well out there. And this guy can coach. This guy can flat out coach. Mississippi State, 8-1. They've got some really good talent on this team, folks. Watch out for this team. They could really, really make a run. Another Southeastern Conference team that is loaded with depth, talent, and athleticism. Duke, 8-2, moved them in. I'm letting them hold on here a little bit, Pete. Illinois as well. They got 2 of the best freshmen right there with Duke, having Cooper Flagg and Kasparunas for Illinois, another great freshman. They have Will Riley for Illinois. I mean, just Underwood did a great job revamping that team. They had lost a lot. and a couple of their big guys got pulled off to NIL deals in other places. But a really, really good job by Coach Underwood to stay in that relevance. Kansas, 7-2. I had to move them down. I had them at number 1 last week, and they got bounced by Missouri, and they got bounced by Duke, and they just, they have not looked great. I'm going to say this. I like those guys too. Norm Roberts, great friend. Bill Self, I respect him at the highest level, but their team is soft. I've watched them a few times now. Your team is soft. Spend some of this time over the break and get back to the basics of defense, rebounding, and playing tough basketball, because right now that's where they're getting beat. Alabama 7-2. Sears is coming on. Sears and Roebuck, we call him. He started off the season a little rough. They had 2 losses, but they've maintained, and those 2 losses are as credible as any 2 losses as anybody has. But I got them in the 15 spot. Gonzaga, 16, Pete. They dropped. They hurt me. 7-2, and they had a couple of bad losses there. I was very high on this team. Believe they lost to West Virginia. Maryland 8-2. Derek Queen, one of the best freshmen in the country. They also have Julian Reese, who I think is going to maybe make our board as a first-round pick. Purdue 8-2. Braden Smith leading the nation in assists, and he is really, really leading this team in a great way. Coach Painter doing a great job. I mean, how do you lose Zach Edey and still maintain your relevance? And they lost Daniel Jacobson to injury earlier in the year, still maintaining their relevance, and I love that. Texas A&M 8-2. This is the buzzsaw. Can they get it back? Wade Taylor is a really, really good player. They had a little bit of a rough start. Let's see if they can tie it all together. But again, they've been out there on that. They've been out there on that advanced scout for General Custer Lamb, too. They walked into a few little bighorns there. We'll see if they can rectify. Cincinnati 7-1. Not gluten-free, though, Pete. Not gluten-free. Clemson 9-1. Really, really great job by Coach Brownell. Kentucky's only loss of the year to Clemson, and I moved them up because they're 9-1. Mississippi 8-1. This is a little bit of the Todd Golden effect with Chris Beard. Had some issues related to his girlfriend when he was the head coach at Texas, led to his dismissal. He's done nothing but great stuff at Mississippi. I'm not a guy that believes in tying the can to the guy. If Mississippi gave him another chance, then I'm going to give Mississippi's team a good chance. They're 8-1, and as of last year, probably they were, they were 11-0 last year, 8-1 now. They're 19-1 over the course of their first starts games, and he just arrived there. I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Mississippi's not an easy job, folks. Arkansas, okay, I'm going to give it to them. 8-2. I'm not in love with this team. Talked ad nauseum about their coach, their coaching staff, how I don't think it's that level of coaching staff personally, but we'll give it to them. 8-2. Missouri 8-1. Great win the other night, as we called it, against Kansas. That crowd was unbelievable. Utah State. I'm going to give it to them at 9-0, Pete. They beat my Bonnies. And right now, I would also like to just mention that the Bonnies are off to one of the best starts in school history, if not the best start in school history. Coach Schmidt and Coach Neal have the team pointed in a great direction. Utah State being their only loss, they're getting ready to get into the league and get into it in seriousness. But to say that when we're able to say, Pete, that Bonaventure is 9-1 and Canisius is 0-10, that's a good day in Western New York, baby. That's a good day in Western New York. Okay, North Carolina, Houston, UConn, St. John's, and Indiana, we took them out. They were top 25, super 25 before we took them out. We're monitoring Dayton, Pittsburgh, and Michigan. I like them both. I like all 3 of them. Okay, Creighton Blue Jays, they took a little bit of a hit this week when Pop Isaacs, one of their best players, came in, and he is going to be out for the season with a hip injury. Terrible, terrible loss for Coach McDermott. Going to put some heat on them. He's averaging 16, 4, and 3.9 assists. And it was against a win against Kansas where he got hurt. Last game, he had 27, 7, and 4. And just unbelievable. He was a portal potty pirate brought in from Texas Tech as well. So Creighton really, really going to be hurting off of that loss. This is another segment of Pope is Dope. In the Zone, we told you so. Kentucky fans are going to love this basketball. They're bluegrass basketball people. They just went from dribble drive motion, Rucker-style basketball, to really, really, really intense X's and O's, execution, and really, really good performance on the basketball side of things. Now, Coach Calipari littered the NBA with NBA prospects. No question about that. The NBA right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, there's a number of former Calipari players that are starring in the NBA right now. No question about it. But this is college basketball, and the little things matter. And Pope is dope, folks. He's really, really good at the little stuff, okay? Kentucky, they beat Gonzaga 90-81. They overcame an 18-point deficit in that game to win the game. Wow. This guy's a really good coach, has a really good feel for his team, and his press conferences are just amazing. Okay, top 25 polls right now versus stripper polls, okay? Which are better? Right now, those top 25 polls that they're putting out there are awful. They're awful. They're both selling something to holler on the dollar. But I think that the people working those polls on the other side are doing a better job this week. Really do. Okay? We got a special Christmas segment of the young and winless. Coppin State, 0-10. We're going to keep following this because this is hard. We don't like to see teams not win at all. Did we say Chicago State 0-11? Oof, that hurts. Let's try it one more time, Pete, because it has a little bit of a ring to it. Canisius 0-10. Alcorn 0-11. Jackson State 0-10. Now, I asked a question on this show a while back. I think it was before Pete's Corner, but I went kind of backdoor and I said, hey, are some of these college basketball programs being used as money laundering operations? Basically, do you have some of these lower level teams that are just set up in order to go get guarantee games in the hundreds of thousands of dollars with no shot at winning, and then you wind up 0-10? We talked about Mississippi Valley State last year. Well, their scheduling guru came in and ensured that they got a win. So they're off the young and winless list right now. Okay? But now you got Jackson State, 0-10. You ready for this, Pete? They played Houston, who was number one at the time. They played Xavier, who was rated 79th in the country at the time. Vanderbilt, 59th. Kentucky was 8th. St. Louis, 135th. Iowa State was 6th. High Point, 119. And UTEP coming up at 117. They played the 1, the 8, and the 6th best team in the country, and you're Jackson State. Money laundering. Money laundering. Okay, Pete, let's throw up that in the zone dirty dozen that we gave you. All right. Beautiful, Pete. Beautiful. Now, this isn't necessarily in a definite lockdown order because there's just so much going on here. But I think these guys are pretty representative of the year. I only call it as I see it, Pete. You know, the young man, R.J. Davis from North Carolina, is having a very, very poor year. He was a Wooden candidate earlier on in the year, no shot. Hunter Dickinson had a shot to be a Wooden Player of the Year. I don't see it. Kalkbrenner had a chance, off to a great start. Creighton, he's slipping. So you're going to watch this. It's kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, and you'll see at the end how it bounces out. But right now, this is my dirty dozen. This guy, John Tanji, is playing some of the best basketball in the country. Nobody even knows his name. That's why we're giving it to you here in the number one spot. He had 40 points this year, 41 points this year against Arizona. Very credible opponent. So we're with John Tanji right now. Everybody's high on Cooper Flagg. We are too, but we're probably not as high as everybody else is. We want to see, we want to evaluate, but right now, I mean, here's what his high school team looked like, Pete. Montverde Academy. They had him. They had Liam McNeely, who plays at UConn right now, one of the best freshmen in the country. They had Derek Queen, the 6'11 guy who was at Maryland. I mean, you're beating people by 50, 60, 70 points a game.
Sure.
Very tough to evaluate a player in that environment. So now I'm watching him in college, and I'm seeing some different things in his game that are making me go, I don't know about how that translates to the NBA. It's all about translation, okay? Cooper Flagg's in my number 2 spot, though. Duke's doing good. He's doing good. They really need some more help around him, though. Con Nepal and some of those other guys got to pick it up. Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. Right now, if I had to pick who would be the player of the year, Wooden Player of the Year, it's Walter Clayton Jr. right now. Right now, it would be Walter Clayton Jr. Okay, Janai Broom. Pete, we lost our graphic there. We've got Janai Broom. I can't see it. I got Janai Broom from Auburn, and he is in the number 4 spot, having a great year. 6'9", 6'10". He can shoot from the outside. He's very, very capable player, and he is absolutely carrying Auburn at an elite level. Last year, I probably would have had him in my top 15, top 20 NBA. Right now, I don't know if he's elevated a whole lot past that, but probably a good bit. You know, he might get 5 or 6 spots out of it, which the way things are going, it's an unbelievable amount of money. It's an unbelievable amount of money. Dylan Harper from Rutgers, everybody was very high on Ace Bailey and warranted as well. But Harper's the guy who's really, really set himself apart. Former NBA player. His father was a former NBA player. He's got the genetics. He's got everything going, and he can really play. He's a good athlete, and he really, really might be, you know, top 3 shooters in the college game right now, without question. All right, Derek Queen, aforementioned from Maryland, really, really good stuff coming out of him. He had 22 and 21 of his first nights, kind of leveled out, but NBA people, you got to keep an eye on this guy. He translates. Keshawn Gilbert from Iowa State is playing great basketball right now. He is absolutely carrying this Iowa State team around. Braden Smith from Purdue, he runs the show, folks. He runs the show. He's leading the country in assists, and as long as they have him, it seems like Coach Painter can just keep painting because he's got a young apprentice with him who understands exactly what he's trying to paint. All right, Cam Jones from Marquette. Again, this isn't a list of who's up, who's down. This is Cam Jones, Walter Clayton, and John Tanji right now are my 1, 2, 3 for Player of the Year. He's playing great. He's carrying Marquette. And when you lose Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro, 2 really good players that are now playing in NBA franchise rosters, that's good stuff that you can keep going. Credit to Coach Shaka Smart. Credit to Cam Jones sticking around. But right now, I can't believe that he hasn't enhanced his draft position. Jamal Mashburn Jr., Temple. I wanted to put his name on the list. He's doing great things. But when I was at Malloy High School, we won the city championship in New York City. That's a pretty cool thing, to have a city championship jacket. You get the ring, the whole thing. It's really, really cool. We played against Jamal Mashburn Sr.'s high school team, against Cardinal Hayes, and it was an unbelievable game, and what a great, great talent he was. I believe he was a sophomore at that time, wound up playing for Rick Pitino at Kentucky, but his son at Temple putting up unbelievable numbers right now and doing great stuff. Mark Sears from Alabama. He's recalibrated, had a really tough start where R.J. Davis has not recalibrated, Sears has. I'm still not sure you're going to have Sears in the conversation for Player of the Year with the start that he had, but he has recalibrated. Now, down on the bottom here, I have a name called Ryan Hunter, all right? And Ryan Hunter is a combination of Kalkbrenner and Dickinson. All right? And if they would show up on any given night together in this one piece, they would be Player of the Year candidate considerations. But they're too inconsistent, they're too soft, and they spend way, way too much time away from the basket for me doing stuff like that. So we call it Ryan Hunter as our 12th best player there. If they can combine those two, they'll get it together. All right, Pete, great job there. And I'm going to now jump right into what I have, and we promised this. We're going to throw you out our top 12 coaches currently, NCAA coaches right now. All right, and this is going to be interesting. We've got number 1, and this is a list that's pretty comprehensive. We thought number 1, we have Bill Self from Kansas. Can't question it. Got the titles, got the longevity. Has a great reputation in the business as a very, very good X's and O person. When his team comes out on the floor, you're going to see a very, very well-coached team. I got Danny Hurley in the number 2 spot back-to-back. I could put him in the number 1 spot right now because he is the king. But right now, I'm going to put him in right between him and Rick Barnes. I think that's pretty good company. Tennessee, Rick Barnes. Previously at Texas. Why did Texas ever get rid of him? I really don't know. But Rick Barnes at Tennessee, number 1 team in the country right now. unbelievable. Number one team in the country right now. Kelvin Sampson used to his ability to sustain, his ability to keep his team in the top. Right now they're struggling. This guy will find a way because they'll go back to defensive basics. If you've ever seen their practice, the way they practice, the way their enthusiasm for the defensive side of the ball is in practice, they'll get it straight. TJ Otzenberger, this young man has really, really skyrocketed up the coaching ranks, took Iowa State, moved them really, really into a power. You know, they're a power team right now, Iowa State, and that's never really happened before. Nate Oates from Alabama, love him. Great coach, great program. Not easy to work at Alabama and be the basketball coach, folks. I can guarantee you that. All right, Mark Pope, we got him on the list now. Kentucky, doing great, great stuff. Dana Altman from Oregon, love him. Go back and check his team's records over the past bunch of years, and you'll see they're on the West Coast. They don't get all the East Coast coverage that we get. They often play very late at night. Dana Altman is a dude, folks. Todd Golden, I'm going to throw him on the list. I don't know what's going on with that other stuff, but you're innocent until proven guilty with us, and we're going to keep him on the list because what they're doing at Florida right now over the past couple of years. And I had said this in the past, I like the way they run their program in terms of the basketball stuff. The off-court stuff here is very troubling. We'll let that work its way out. But I do like the way they carry themselves on the basketball court since they've been under the direction of Coach Golden. Bruce Pearl, I'm going to put him in at number 12. Really kept that, again, Auburn, Alabama, those aren't easy basketball jobs. And they've taken those jobs and they've taken the SEC conference. Those coaches, a lot like Press Maravich did back in the day with his son Pete, they're elevating that league. They're elevating that league as a basketball entity because right now it's by and large, you know, it's thought of a lot of as a football league. No question about it. Okay, here's a new segment for you, Pete, called Being Number One Ain't It All It's Cracked Up to Be. Missouri with a signature home win. Coach Gates needed this win. They're off to a good start. They got some talent on this team, too. When I watched them play, man, they had as much talent as Kansas does. So keep an eye on this Missouri team. There was a huge, huge home win over them, 76-67. It wasn't even that close. Again, I watched it. I came away from it. Really hard place to play, Missouri. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm a coach. I know how that can be. But I also saw your team, Kansas, and you're soft. You got to toughen up. Dickinson's got to toughen up. Flory Badongo is really, really good. They could use him a little bit more, but they got to toughen up. Tamar Bates went for 29 and 5 steals against them, and almost had every single one of them was a dunk. Okay, Pete, we're going to hand out a nickname today because it's getting to the point of being too much, Pete. All right? So we are going to nickname former Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker Fugazi Faker Baker. Okay? I'm going to give him a second nickname, and his second nickname is Horatio because he's a hoe for sticking around for that NCAA pay dough, and he's only here for the ratio. I'm going to explain that, okay? They went on Twitter, some of the different social media sites that they have access to, and they said there is progress. I love how they frame this. Progress being made. Okay? Says who? Says who? Who told you that? Okay? That's what I want to know. Progress being made to expand the NCAA tournament to 72 or 76 teams.
They're doing the same thing the NBA is doing.
We knew it. We knew they were going to get in there with this corporate shill, and they were going to run and they were going to move this way.
Sounds like the in-season tournament.
It is now. It's just like it, Pete. Unbelievable. Great call. And let me tell you this, too. They now have to change the name of NCAA bid.
Right.
It's got to be changed to Portal Potty Participation Trophy. There's no way. There's no way. What you're doing is you're saying to all of the people here's what we predicted would happen years ago, and this is what they're trying to avoid. Years ago, we predicted that with all of this movement, all of this shifting, they were just going to rub out all of the lower levels of basketball and their automatic qualifiers, the part of March Madness that everybody really likes and enjoys, okay? So you're talking about LIU, Brooklyn, Manhattan College, Fairfield, all those lower level schools where the fans show up, they love it. I always thought they would wipe them out. But instead of wiping them out, what they're doing was they're going to allow them to remain, but they now have to buffer the Power 5 teams who will get knocked out now because the Power 5 teams, Houston's 4-3. What if they wind up 500? Are they going to put them into the NCAA at large? No, they won't. When they go to 76, when they go to 72, they will.
Bye-bye.
That's it. They're just going to say, see you later. And so now what you're doing is you're creating this buffer zone for teams to fail. All right? So Faker Baker, get your hat on, get to work, do some good stuff here, because right now, everything that you're proposing, and the reason we call them Horatio is because the ratio means, and the young people will be able to respond to this, the ratio means you posted something on Facebook, and the ratio of people who responded negatively to you came back almost at 100%. So when they posted this, there were 10,000, 15,000 responses that said, no, don't do it. We don't want it. And this is going to be, I'm going to take you into the political forum, okay? Because this is how this is just, they're mirror images of each other right now. The way the basketball works and the way the political forum is right now, they work like hand in hand. And so what they're doing is, years ago, they used to do polling of the American people. And they would find out, are you for this? Are you for that? And then they would govern along those frameworks. They don't want it, so we're not going to give it to them. Or they do want this, we're going to give it to them. And they would do that through polling. Now, I think that's a kind of a crappy way to lead and to govern personally, but at least it gives you a feel, a pulse of what the people are thinking. And that's what they were doing years ago, and I thought it was really cowardly.
That's like putting a windsock out to see which way the wind is blowing.
Exactly. And then saying, okay, we're going to sail this way. And I think that the change has been so deleterious both for this country and for the game. And the polling, or at least in the ratios, you're finding out people don't want this stuff. But you're going to give it to them anyway. And that's been the shift and change, both politically and into the basketball and sports forum, is that the people used to have a representation there. The people used to have a way of having some communication with the people up top to say, we don't want it. We don't want to do it. Right now, Baker just got an earful from the American people on social media that they don't want March Madness tampered with. They like it the way it is, they want to keep it the way it is, and they don't want it tampered with. And in the whole ratio, I couldn't find one person, not one person who said, hey, Governor Baker, great job, man. Way to go. This is genius. This is cutting edge. You're so far ahead of your time. No, they destroyed him.
Somebody should talk to Paul Levesque over at the WWE. Because they give you what you want, but sometimes you got to wait for it, and sometimes they swerve you to get there.
It's not that much different right now.
Right.
It's not that much different right now. But when the people kick back and say, we don't want this, let me give you an example. The people probably didn't want the wide open three-point shooting contest that the NBA has become.
Right.
The people probably didn't want the European-style basketball in there. Very happy with the style of basketball we had. We loved it. But then the geniuses got together. Everybody put their heads together and came up with, some shepherd's pie full of dog crap. Okay? And that's exactly what the people are forced to eat right now. And when they say, no, don't do this, and the people go ahead and do it, that's when you know that you need revolt. Mm-hmm. That's when you know you need an uprising. That's when you know conclusively that they're no longer working in your best interest. They're actually working against you for their corporate interests, their individual interests, or for the interest of these universities now who have partnered up with these people that long ago they had deep, deep hatred and detestation for. Okay? That's where you're at, folks. I don't know what the answer to it is, but I can tell you right now, hi-yo silver, and get rid of Faker Baker, because they're not going to help you. They're only here for the ratio. Folks, it's Thursday. We're in the zone. We'll see you next week. This was show 85, folks. And if we're on pace, if we keep moving and grooving, we are going to hit our 327-25. March 27th will be our 100th show. We'll get you a very, very special guest for that show. But I want to say thank you again. Huge debt of gratitude. We're heading into the holidays. We love all of our listeners, all of our zoners. We'll see you next week. Pete, we're in the zone.